If you're searching for a home in San Francisco, you know the frustration. You were scrolling through an app, probably Redfin, and you find a property and it looks perfect. And then right before your eyes, it goes pending and you haven't even walked in the door. So here's the secret sauce that most real estate agents aren't gonna be showing you up front. There's actually a second choice neighborhood section that most people completely overlook. Today, I'm actually gonna show you 4 neighborhoods that have almost everything that these top tier neighborhoods have, but without the insane competition. With homes in the San Francisco market selling in days, sometimes in hours, and often before they ever hit the market, I wanna make sure that you don't waste your time. There are some things that you need to know. You're gonna need to know about the neighborhoods that you're probably already missing. Also, how are these homes sold before they're even listed? And exactly what do you need to know to stay ahead of the market? So I'm gonna start today with one of the unexpected do or die neighborhoods, one that might surprise you. And it might completely change how you approach your home search. If you're serious about finding a perfect home, we drop a new video every Monday at 5 p.m. All right, if you live in San Francisco and you live on the north side of town, you might think I'm crazy, because let's be honest, there's a little bit of this vibe of like looking down on the south side if you live on the north side. But hang in there with me, because we're also gonna go back up to the north to a do or die neighborhood as well. Noe Valley is actually a neighborhood, and it's that I call a do or die neighborhood. And both of the neighborhoods I'm gonna talk about today are defined as that. And what do I mean as that? What I mean is that there's sometimes these neighborhoods where if a buyer cannot buy in that neighborhood, they may not buy. They may choose to rent, or they may choose to majorly compromise on the house in order to stay in that neighborhood. Now, what does a major compromise look like? Let me show you. So this is a home on Chattanooga, which is really close to 24th Street, right? So you have Chattanooga here. This is 24th Street, which is the major walking corridor for Noe Valley, where you find a lot of shops and restaurants. And in Noe Valley, to be on this section, kind of, you know, whether it's Chattanooga, 23rd, Alvarado, 22nd, kind of this section here, Jersey, 25th, Clipper is busier, so maybe not so much Clipper, 26th, even down into Cesar Chavez. Like these areas in the flats that are walkable to 24th Street are really, really sought after. So that's kind of what I would call prime Noe. So this was a house that was listed around $2 million. It's currently in contract for 2.3. And I had some buyers who were looking at this. Let's take a look. So it's looks better in the photos actually. And it's a great house. Like it feels very charming when you're in there, but it needed some work. Like this kitchen was old, you know, been painted nicely and shows nicely, but it's older. You walked out into this backyard and then there was some like, I don't know if they were apartments or what, that were kind of facing down in this. And there was like laundry hanging from those ledges and it was not private and it wasn't a very good look. This would have been the primary, and you walk down this hallway and I don't know if they show it. They don't show it. Okay, so you walk down this hallway for the primary. This is just kind of this weird room that we talked about turning into like a dressing room. But off of this hallway, I think there used to be a closet here and they literally put a toilet in there. So you did have a toilet for your quote unquote primary, but it was really awkward. And then across from the primary, there was another room in this kind of front area. So you had 2 rooms, and then you did have some views. This was a bathroom that was located at the very back part of the house. This tub was like wood that was polyurethaned or something. And then you walked out the stairs and you had this backyard. Like I said, there was all these condos here that really overlooked that yard, and it wasn't the best look. You can't really see them in the pictures, not surprisingly. And then downstairs, not connected, there was another apartment. So this was actually like a 2-unit. And I mean, honestly, for the amount of space, This was a lot of space to get for $2.3 million. And it offered a lot. It offered a lot of utility. Let's take a look at the floor plan. So yeah, you can see here, so primary, and then you had like this converted closet here, and then 2 bedrooms here that kind of like shared some closet space here. They're calling this an office. That was where that like fireplace is. I think this basically would be like a dressing room. And then the small living room. So, I mean, it actually was, you know, not a bad floor plan at all. And again, like, I think this lower space was rented for something like $3,000 or $3,500 a month, which was pretty cool. But all that to say, there's some awkward things about that space, but that's what kind of a starter $2.5 million budget gets you in Noe Valley. And I would say, like, when I say Noe, there's several neighborhoods, what I would call like adjacent neighborhoods that are generally clumped together. Like when people talk about Noe, they're also often talking about Eureka Valley, Mission Dolores, kind of, they don't even know where the areas of Noe ends and like Eureka Valley begins. So it kind of is all clumped together. So typically a Noe buyer would also consider one of those neighborhoods, and the prices are all about the same. But why do people want to be in Noe? Well, that 24th Street corridor, they really, really like it. But is it like the best, most walkable street with really cool shops and a nightlife? Actually, no, it's neither of those. But I would say one of the biggest attractions for this side of town is actually tech. I know some of you may be sick of hearing about tech, but tech is really a large part of our life here. And most of our buyers are actually in tech. And so the buyers who are in tech that also work down south, and you know, a lot of the headquarters for Google, Facebook, Netflix, they're all down south, right? So, and biotech too, you have down south. So having that proximity, actually, let me show you. So this is Noe, right? And then you can just jump right down on San Jose Avenue and be out onto the freeway. And so having that proximity in this area of town to get down south is actually really desirable versus if you're all the way up here, then getting down south, it could be like a 45-minute drive to get out of the city. And if you're taking a 45-minute drive and you have kids to get home to at night, or a partner, or maybe you just want to have a life outside of work, I mean, that can really, really cut into your day, especially if it's 2 ways. Yes, as you probably know, there's a lot of working from home, but many of the tech companies are requiring their people to be back into the office 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 days a week. And some people like to be in the office. My husband, for example, he works at Google and he goes into the office 5 days a week. He just loves to be there. I mean, who wouldn't be? They have like lunch and great views and a great space to work out of. And he just finds it like more energizing, and he just loves to be in the office. So those minutes in the car really add up and are critical to a quality of life. Also with Noe Valley, it has the nickname of Stroller Valley, so it actually seems to attract a lot of families. The weather is really, really good. It's sunny most of the time. Now, as you move up into this section of Noe, like up towards Market, it does get a little bit windier and foggier in this section. But down in the flats, it's sunny, not as windy, and the weather overall is really, really good. There's the architecture is really pretty. There's stunning Victorians, Edwardian homes. There's trees lining a lot of the street. So you have that very like San Francisco feel in the neighborhood. Lots of different colors in the houses and intricate details. It's a very pretty neighborhood. There are great restaurants. You can grab sushi at Saru, which is one of my favorite spots for sushi. It's a little tiny sushi restaurant, does not take reservations. If you don't feel like doing sushi, we've actually been making sushi at home, and I just walk over to Billing Gates, which is a little fish shop across the street. I buy some sashimi, I go home, and I actually just like cut up the nori, and then I just hand it out like tacos, and I have the sushi cut up, and my kids like make their own like like fish tacos, sushi tacos. It's like a hand roll, but not quite as pretty as what they make in the restaurants. And then you have Novi. There's some great restaurants. Fresca is opening back up. There's a Whole Foods. There's hardware stores. There's banks. There's bars. Like it's really, really cute. It's not as happening as some of the streets, but it is like happening enough, and people tend to really, really like it. Also, the community in Noe is like, it's just got a really, really nice vibe. There's a really active business association here, and actually there's a wine walk on Thursday. There's like concerts in the square, not concerts, but like music in the square. They do yoga there sometimes. There's a farmer's market there. There's lots of little parks around Noe Valley. And then of course you've got Glen Park Canyon, which is really close for a little bit bigger park, or Dolores Park, which is a little bit more of like kind of an adult vibe mixed with a kid vibe. Like you've got a lot of adults hanging out there, drinking, partying, having fun, but then there's like this massive playground that's really cool. So you get a nice mix of like kids and adults. And I think in San Francisco in general, people aren't really super worried about their kids being around, people having a little bit of a party life as well. So maybe a little bit of that European vibe where, I don't know if you've like gone to Spain or somewhere, but you know, you go to the squares and everybody's like having a glass of wine while their kids are playing in the park. So it's kind of like that. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different neighborhoods in San Francisco, all with different vibes. So if you ever want to talk about your specific criteria mixed with your specific budget, feel free to reach out. We talk to clients about this all the time. And believe it or not, most of our clients actually live in or around San Francisco, but don't know the intricacies of these neighborhoods. So there's no stupid questions. We're happy to help. So the catch with Noe Valley is that it's really competitive. It's really desirable. So your typical budget here is for, say, like a 3-bedroom single family home. It's going to start around 2.2. I showed you the one that you can get for 2.3. So it's definitely going to require some compromises, and you're probably going to find yourself wanting to spend closer to 3 and maybe a bit more. And for a home with even fewer sacrifices, honestly, $4 to $6 million is a better budget. You will start to get a bigger house at that price point. Homes do go pending really quickly. The average is 14 days to go pending. And like I said, a lot of these homes are really snatched up within a matter of days. Now, Noe does have a lot of condos, and the buyer that I mentioned that was looking at that house on Chattanooga that we looked at for 2.3, they decided not to offer on that house. We looked at it really, really closely. It also had a lot of things in the disclosure package. A lot of these houses that are like 100 years old, it's not unusual for them to have like big pest reports, older roofs, knob and tube wiring, that sort of thing. So that buyer, like many buyers in that price point, because they want to stay in Noe, they very likely might end up in a condo. And it's actually looking like that's going to be the reality for them. And you could get a really nice condo for that budget. You could get something for as low as like probably 1.5, sometimes 1.4. But like if you're looking at a single family home, you're probably going to spend that 2 to 2.5 for something pretty nice that is a condo. And sometimes, not always, that could give you like a private backyard. Usually it's a shared backyard, and kind of the nicer it is, the more it's going to push you to that higher end price point. So with all the tech buyers that really want to be close to those tech offices, Noe is by no means on the list of most affordable places to live in San Francisco. But the second place that I'm going to show you of the do or die neighborhoods on the list is the most expensive place in San Francisco. So stay tuned for that. So let's talk a little bit about multiple offers and also underpricing, because that's something that's really, really common in Noe Valley. And one of the biggest mistakes that I hear from buyers who are contacting me, maybe they've been looking for years, and they reach out to us and they're like, I just haven't found a home, and I've been looking for years and I cannot find what I'm looking for. And then when we ask them like, well, what's your budget? And it's like, well, it's, $2.5 million and I want a 4-bedroom house that's done. Guess what? That doesn't exist in Noe, right? So working with an agent that up front can really walk you through that and be like, honest, hey, I don't really think that you're going to find what you're looking for, but let's take a look at all of the past sales of things that have sold in the neighborhoods that you want to look at and help you see like, oh, it doesn't look like that exists. So now let's talk about some of these other neighborhoods that maybe you can get what you want, because maybe you're not the do or die Noe Valley client, right? Maybe you actually really want a house that's more updated or a little bit bigger or has a bigger backyard, and you're willing to compromise a little bit. So where would you go next? What other neighborhoods should you look at? And so I would say that a lot of the places that some of those buyers will end up, there's a few. So Bernal Heights is going to be one. Another is going to be Mira Loma and the surrounding areas. There's a lot of very similar areas around that. And then another one is going to be Glen Park. Let's start with Bernal. So we have a client right now, and actually we just got them into contract the other day. They wanted to be in Noe Valley, but they wanted a 3,000 plus square foot house. They wanted something that was newer construction. They wanted views, and they wanted to spend under $3.5 million. So Noe, unfortunately, was not on the table for them. And when we looked at the past sold, we really saw that that was true. Actually, I met with these buyers several years ago, and they decided, oh, maybe we'll wait and maybe we'll stay in our place. And then ultimately they decided that they wanted to buy, and we found this home. We did find them a home, and actually they live in Bernal Heights now in a smaller house that we're going to be bringing on the market. So cute, by the way. And they bought a house. So let me show you kind of what that house would look like. So backing up a little bit, let me just show you what the proximity is here, just in case you're not from San Francisco. We'd be happy to chat with you too. But Noe is here. I think most people who live in the city do know where Bernal Heights is. Bernal is here. So it's like right next door, right? So it's not far. You still have good weather here. You still have great proximity to the 280. You've got some great parks here, which I'll talk about in a minute. You have a great walkable street here, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But let's take a look at what this house looks like. So newer construction, it was done in the last 8 years. Views, really nice views. Your outdoor space is a little lacking here, to be honest. This is part of what brings it to that price. You don't have like a grassy backyard, but beautiful kitchen, beautiful finishes, nice trees outside, super cute little powder room. And then you go up, you have this gorgeous roof deck. Every time I've gone there, we've been lucky enough to see the sunset, and it's been gorgeous, absolutely stunning. Nice big primary, redone bathroom. And then you've got basically it's 4 bedrooms. So this is another one of the bedrooms. And then you have another family room. And then down below you have a gym and another bedroom as well. So this is a great house, but if we took this house and we moved it over to Noe, it would be between $4.5 and $5 million. So for $1 million less, you can live in Bernal. And 3.5 is a very healthy budget for Bernal. I would say most likely, most buyers who are buying there, they're looking in the 2 to 2.5. You can get a really good home there, sometimes up to 2.8. That's kind of going to be your sweet spot for Bernal. There are homes that sell in the 3s and the 4s. One of the most beautiful homes that I ever sold was 4.5. And that's a big number for Bernal. But oh my gosh, it was so pretty. I loved that home. And those buyers were also originally looking in Noe, but when they found this home, it was just oh my gosh, they had to have it, and I could see why. So in Bernal, it has that same kind of community vibe, really nice neighbors that are taking care of each other, maybe even a little bit more so in Noe. It's a little bit more of a community vibe. And then let me just go back to the map. So you've got Bernal Hill here, which is super, super cute. You've got massive views from the city up there. And then you've got Cortland Avenue. Let me see if I can. So you've got nice tree-lined streets. This is a nice corridor here. We've got some great restaurants, shops. This is Third Cousin. This is a Michelin star restaurant. I guess we're kind of at the end here. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna turn back around. This is a library here, and there's a playground in the back. You've got a little taco shop right here, and then Martha's Coffee, which is a local coffee shop. There's a couple of coffee shops. There's a couple of bakeries. You've got it's like a handful of restaurants. This is Good Life Grocery here. This is a children's used clothing shop. I used to shop there all the time when my kids were little. I hate buying things that people like, that your kids use for like a month, or you find all those clothes that they never even wore because they outgrew them before you found them. Anyway, this is Bernal, and then there's a lot of different. This is Holly Park here, which has a little dog park, basketball court, that sort of thing. There's another strip park here. This is Presida Park. Super, super cute. I love parks where there's like houses surrounding them. It's Presida Cafe. This is a chain park cafe that's around a lot of the parks. But you've got this playground, and I love when the houses surround the park like this, because basically what you end up having is the whole community, just gathering there after work. There's this big grassy area. I think sometimes they have movies there, but a great place to like kick around a soccer ball and meet all of the neighbors. So really, really cute. So I think this is a great alternative to Noe. And the nice thing is honestly, I feel like Bernal, it was really, really high a couple of years ago, you guys, and it's going to come back. But then I think during the 2022, when interest rates started rising, it really got hit, and it just has not come back the same way, or as fast as I would actually expect it to. But it's gonna come back, because look at it. It's really, really cute. So that's gonna be a great neighborhood for people to end up in. And then there's Glen Park. Let me show you where that is on the map. So again, Noe was kind of our do or die neighborhood, and Glen Park is right here. So it's super, super close, just right across from Bernal on the other side of San Jose. And you have Glen Park Canyon, which is a really, look how nice and big it is. You can go hike around in there. Let's drop in there. You've got, I think a little community center in there. Oh, all these hiking trails. Over here I'm not doing a very good job here. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I'll have to show you, I think, in the B-roll. But you've got a baseball field over here. There's a soccer field. There's a kid's playground. It's really, really cute. So the main strip for Glen Park is going to be Chenery and Diamond, which is going to be Diamond Heights Boulevard comes out. So it's right here. So, and you have the cool thing about Glen Park is that you have a BART station, and there's on like Chenery and Diamond, there's, oops, the wrong way. So you can see like, this is the non-commercial part of Chenery. Really cute little homes, little bit smaller than Noe. There are some big homes, but not that many. But look at these nice trees and just like super, super cute homes. And then your walkable street is Chenery. And so you come here at the end and Diamond, and you have this little French, I don't know if it's a restaurant or a bar. I'll be honest, I have not been in there. I should go in there. And then there's like a little taco shop across the street. This taco shop is really, really good. Somewhere here, I think here. Yeah, La Corneta. You have this, I think, kind of like a boba place, I think. And then Canyon Market is awesome. It's kind of like a, local grocery store, like a high-end local grocery store. They have a really good deli in there. There's a couple of coffee shops right here. There's a library right here. And then back down on Chenery, you've got a hardware store and a couple more restaurants. There's a furniture shop up here somewhere. So look at all these trees, like super, super cute. I believe this cheese shop is closed, unfortunately, but it's cute. It's not a lot, you guys. So I would say of the two, like it would go like 24th Street is going to give you the best street option, followed by Cortland, followed by the Chenery Diamond area. In terms of like prices and stuff, Glen Park and Bernal, they're about the same. I would say you can find less expensive stuff in Bernal sometimes because there's like just some smaller, I would say less maintained houses there in some cases. So you have some options at the even less expensive price points in Bernal Heights versus Glen Park. So, and then if those neighborhoods don't work for you, so now you haven't given up sun, you haven't given up walkability, and let's not forget that Glen Park has a BART. I think I already said that, but it's a big deal. Like there's no BARTs on this side of the city. Well, there is. You could go up to like the Mission. So even actually from Bernal, if you walk down Folsom Street, you could be at the 24th Street BART, which is, you know, a little not so nice, but the walk down Folsom is actually pretty nice, and then you just quickly get in there. So it's a little rough right there, I'm gonna be honest, but the Glen Park BART is not at all. It's like super clean, and like I don't see a lot of like riffraff stuff going on out there. So nice way to get to other parts of the city without using a car, which is always, I think, a really nice quality of life. But so for that, you know, similar price points, that like 2.2 to 2.8 is going to be solid, sometimes more. If you want to spend even less and you can't, so it's kind of going to be like this. You're going to be like, okay, I want to be in Noe, can't afford it. Then I'm going to look in those neighborhoods. And if I can't afford those neighborhoods, then the next neighborhoods that you're going to be looking at is the area in and around Mira Loma. So I've told you guys this before, but you pay a lot for sun and walkability in San Francisco. So if you're willing to give up those things, which you would have to be if you're going over to Mira Loma and those areas. And when I say those areas here, let's take a look. We're here, right? Glen Park. And then if you go west, this whole section here would kind of be the next section that people would look in. And so here in this whole section, this is mostly what we call D4, District 4 in realtor speak. You've got Mira Loma here. Right down here is Sunnyside. And then all of these areas here are gonna be like Westwood Highlands. You have Monterey Heights being up higher. These areas here in like Monterey Heights as opposed to Westwood Highlands, they're going to be a little bit more expensive because the houses are a little bigger and you also have more views up there. But as you go over here into Mira Loma, let me just show you, like, for example, the contrast between a home that you would get in Noe versus, because we looked at the one in Noe, right? And let's look at what you would get for about the same price this is Westwood Highlands. This is a home I looked at with some clients, actually those same clients that were looking at Chattanooga. We looked at this home. They decided they did not want to be in this neighborhood because they didn't feel the vibe. But for the same price point, look at this. You're getting new construction. Like this is, you know, not the highest end finishes, but really solid for this price point, like a brand new home. So that means you're getting new wiring, new plumbing, new roof, like nice open floor plan. A lot of times you're not getting, in this price point, you're not getting like 3 bedrooms up on one level. So you would get your bedrooms are going to be spread out over 2 levels. So like 2 bedrooms on this upper level, but look how cute this is. Really nice, right? You get some views, you get a big backyard, but it's not going to be sunny and it's not super walkable. Now, this particular section of town in Westwood Park, I think this is, oh, sorry, I apologize. This is actually Sunnyside. This is not the one I was thinking of. But so Sunnyside, I was thinking this was down here because I looked at almost the same home down here with a client. So I apologize. But from down here, you have a walkable area of Ocean Avenue. But from here, there's really nothing walkable, right? You've got the Safeway here, not the nicest Safeway you've ever been to. There's not a whole lot going on Monterey, right? It's just all houses. It's a very busy street. There's a few coffee shops sprinkled in, but nothing fancy, nothing like super nice that you'd want to go to. But you can walk over here to Glen Park, and there's some areas, and we would help you with this. Like there's this area over here in Mangles where you can pop down and you pay Sunnyside prices, but you pop down some secret steps here and you're right down into Glen Park, right? So we do know about a lot of these little areas that we can tell you about. You know, these neighborhoods are really block by block, street by street. And, you know, I have some favorite streets here. Juiced and Mangles are my favorites here. And, you know, every neighborhood we have kind of our favorite streets. And, you know, so you'll want to know about those, like, what are the best streets? Like, did you see them? You know, I feel like it's a bummer if you end up buying and then living in a place and then you go a few streets over to your friend's house that moved in there and then you're like, oh my God, this is so much better, and it was the same price. So bottom line is you have several choices over here in District 4 where you can get a house kind of like the one that I showed you for that same price point as Noe Valley. And, you know, you do have to give up the walkability and you do have to give up the sun, but then you can get a lot more house. So it just really comes down to, like, what do you want? Like, what is important to you at this stage of life? And we're happy to help you explore those things. Okay, so our next do or die neighborhood, that is the most expensive neighborhood in San Francisco, is Pacific Heights. And that's a neighborhood where a lot of times people have trouble leaving. Like, they moved there to rent. They were living close to Fillmore Street and living close to Lafayette Park or, you know, Alta Vista, and they just do not want to leave. And honestly, it's probably one of the highest quality of life neighborhoods when it comes to, like, walkability, weather, shopping, that sort of thing. So I can see why it's a very, very attractive place to live, but it's very, very expensive. I mean, you've got Billionaires Row. Let's take a look at where that is. Okay, so now we're backing up all the way here. We're going up here. And remember, if you're in tech, we're gonna add commute time unless you're working downtown, and only working downtown and you're sure you're gonna stay down there, because we know that tech people change jobs like every 2 to 4 years. So it's hard to know where you're going to be, but Pacific Heights here is definitely going to be one of those neighborhoods that people really don't want to leave. And I told you I would tell you, so if you go to the Lion Street steps, which are here, and then you go here to Broadway, this is going to be Billionaires Row. And, you know, these houses are going to run between about $15 to $70 million. Most not 15 and most not 70 million. Only one was 70 million, but usually you're going to be looking at 30 million, 20, $30 million to live on these few blocks. Let's face it, not everyone living in Pac Heights is living in Billionaires Row. I would say the majority of homes in Pacific Heights are not $30 million. There's only, like, you know, a few that sell a year in those price points, but the budget is going to be substantially higher. So a good, you know, I think the median price in Pacific Heights is close to $6 million. So a good budget for Pacific Heights is really going to be like 6 and up. And not everyone can afford that either, but just like Noe Valley, a good thing about Pacific Heights is there are a lot of condos there. So there are options. We just did a video on a place we sold on Jackson Street, which we sold for 2.2, I think it was. And it was a beautiful 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo right off Fillmore Street, right off the park, that offered a lot. And our clients that lived there, they lived there with 3 kids. And so, you know, you don't have to spend that much money to live there. But for a lot of people, if they can't live in Pacific Heights in one of those homes, they will either rent or they will live in a condo. Also, when you're talking about Pacific Heights, a lot of times, like, Cow Hollow is another neighborhood that gets mixed into there. And Cow Hollow is a little bit closer to the water, has a similar style of inventory, a little bit more walkable. Your walkable street there is going to be Union. I'll be happy to go into detail with you about that if you want. But, you know, kind of just like Noe, there's some adjacent neighborhoods that are kind of mixed in with Pacific Heights. So, but one of the biggest things is really this, I would say both Union Street and Chestnut Street are 2 of the best walkable streets in the entire city. And so if you're really, you know, a lot of times when people live in San Francisco, they want that walkability. They want that lifestyle of being able to walk to a really cool restaurant. And there's some of the best food in the city, some of the best shopping in the city right there. So That is probably the biggest draw for people being there. It's like a very, very cool vibe. From certain parts of Pacific Heights, like my son goes to school on Broadway Street, and we were playing a pop quiz as we were driving up to Tahoe the other day, and just everybody's like making up their own questions, and he was like, what 7 iconic landmarks for San Francisco landmarks can you see from my school? And I'm like, let's see, Alcatraz, the water, the bay, the Golden Gate Bridge. And then, I was like, Palace of Fine Arts. And then, basically he was like, yeah, from parts of it, you can even see Coit Tower and the Bay Bridge. I think the Bay Bridge, I need to see that for myself. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but it is like when, I was there the other day with him. And so I did a walk around, and it's just like, I'm like looking at all of these landmarks as I'm walking, and so it just feels very San Francisco. It's very, very pretty. And so I think that really, really draws people, but not everyone can afford to live there. So we had some clients who were living there very, very happily, but wanted to buy a bigger house. And they were looking for 2 years, despite the fact that we had done that exercise that I mentioned where we looked at like, what can you afford? And they didn't want to spend more than like low 5s. And, the stuff that they liked was really in the 6s. And they just really didn't want to spend that. And so, but they kept looking. And ultimately, they did not buy in Pacific Heights. We were really, really narrowed in on Lake Street, which is going to be one of the neighborhoods that I would say would be like one of the top backup neighborhoods for Pacific Heights. And I'm going to go into that in a minute, but like a little bit more about why you live there. The weather is also really good. And one of the neighborhoods that they really ended up narrowing into was Lake Street, which is going to be the neighborhood I'm going to talk about in a minute. But another reason, just before I finish up, that people really want to live there is the weather is also really good. I would say it's not quite as good as Noe Valley, and it kind of depends on the time of year. At certain times of year, you have more of a marine layer that's there in the morning, and then it kind of burns off. But it's really, really solid. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably a 7 most of the time. So good weather, good walkability, great views, really good community. Also up there, if you do have kids that are in private school, a large portion of the private schools are actually on that side of town. So that ends up taking a lot of people who have their kids in those schools to that section of town as well. So, but if you can't afford to live in a single family home in Pacific Heights, and you still want a single family home and you still want to be close, I do think Lake is a really, really great corridor. And let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so we're up here in Pacific Heights, right? It's here. And then you have Presidio Heights, which is not any less expensive. But if you go right over here, you're in Lake Street corridor. And honestly, you guys, you can get into an Uber and be on Fillmore or Union Street in about 13 minutes from Lake Street. So it's really, really close. And your affordability goes from like the average priced home in Lake drops down to about $4 million. And versus, remember I said it was 6 in Pacific Heights. Before I talk about Lake Street, I'm going to show you. Sorry, I'm all over the place. Pacific Heights, the interesting thing there is that not all homes do fly off really quickly. So in different parts of San Francisco, you have different cultures and strategies for selling homes. And often as you get to more expensive homes, you don't have as much of an underpriced selling strategy as you do in lower priced homes. So Noe, I mentioned to you, like it's like this underpricing strategy, very fast market. Pacific Heights is actually not as fast. There are more homes that sell off market, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute, in that price point. But the average days on market in Pacific Heights on average is 61 days. So it's not that everything is flying off, but some things do fly off and you want to be ready. But I would say the majority of people that are leaving Pacific Heights, the do or die, and going to Lake Street or lower Pack Heights or something like that are going just because they can't afford it. It's not because they were necessarily missing a home. But if they were missing a home, it would have been off market, which we're going to talk about in a sec. But let's look at Lake Street. So Lake, again, like tree-lined street. This is also a slow street. And so there's a car there. I feel like a lot of the cars just ignore the slow streets, but really nice street. And you can walk on this. I don't know when these photos from Google were taken. It doesn't look like, oh, look at that. It is the slow street that people are ignoring. But the nice thing here, one of the nice, like I'd say most coveted areas is going to be your cul-de-sacs. There's all these little cul-de-sacs here. Look at this. It's all these little cul-de-sacs that back up into the Presidio. Like, how awesome is that? And then you have this Mountain Lake Park. I'm embarrassed to say, but I had not been in there until I did a video there. And I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. But I just kind of saw this as all the Presidio, but this is a really cute little park to like run around, and there's a playground and everything. And then of course the Presidio is massive, right? You have a golf course there, there's camping grounds, there's hiking. I mean, look, it's huge. But so Lake Street, you're going to end up with some really, really nice homes. Like, let me show you an example. So this is a home that I sold to a buyer, and this buyer was actually wanting to live in Noe, and they ended up here. This home sold for about $4.5 million and was right on a cul-de-sac and backed right up into the Presidio. And it was a really, really great home. So that's going to be on one of those cul-de-sacs there. So the Lake Street corridor is actually quite small, and I would say Inner Richmond is almost like this section of Inner Richmond is almost as valuable and as sought after as this section of Lake. And the walkable streets here are going to be like Clement. You have tons of restaurants and stuff on Clement. You also have Sacramento, but let's drop in. So Clement, they call this the little Chinatown, but there's actually a lot of like ethnic food, but also just like really great American cuisine as well. I think going the wrong way. Look at these cute little cars. Oh my gosh. So if you're a tourist, well, even if you're not a tourist, I guess you can go and rent one of those cars and drive around and see the city and hopefully not get hit. But this is Clement, like not as cute as Fillmore Street or Union Street, but still like really, really offers a lot. I mean, it's got a lot of diversity of food and really, really great food and bars and nightlife. And like, I mean, it's a great spot. And if you want something that feels a little bit more shishi from this neighborhood, you can also go over into Presidio Heights and you can be on Sacramento Street, where there's not a ton of food there, but you've got obviously Spruce. So here's Sacramento Street, which is the walking corridor for Presidio Heights, more trees. And then there's Spruce, and there's another really high-end restaurant there that is escaping me right now. But you also have this walking corridor on California. So there's quite a few restaurants and shops and stuff there. So you have quite a bit of walkability and really, really great homes for a little bit less money. Another area that you might consider if you were looking at Pacific Heights would be Lower Pacific Heights, which is going to be more like around here. And it's slightly less expensive there. Your major walking corridor there is going to be Diviz, or you can also pop over to like California and Sacramento Street from there as well. So those are a couple of the areas. Interestingly enough, the buyer that I mentioned that lives in Pacific Heights and was like thinking about buying in Lake Street, they actually ended up buying in Coal Valley, which they didn't even know about. I mean, they of course they had heard of it because they were San Francisco residents, but they never really spent any time there. And we found a home that came up off market that after looking for them for many, many years, we're like, actually, this is really close to your kid's school. It fits all of your needs. And they, humored us, went over and looked at it, loved it, and then started looking at the neighborhood a little bit more. So I think just like making sure that you can partner with somebody that can help you think outside of your box, because sometimes your box might be too narrow And it might also not have the things in the box, the homes in the box that you need in the box, right? So it really, it's not that you can't find what you're looking for, but you may need to have someone help you open up your mind a little bit to some other areas so that you can be successful. And because, time is money, right? And so if you're spending years looking for something, or you're writing offers on things that are going to go much higher than you can afford, that's just like a massive waste of your time and energy. I mean, I feel like the average time that somebody spends writing an offer is about 10 hours. That's like your time. That doesn't include my time. So it's just, and then to get the heartbreak and all that stuff, you're better off just really understanding where you can afford, where you're going to be most successful. So Lake Street is actually more competitive, not less competitive than Pacific Heights. I think mostly because it doesn't have a lot of inventory. So I didn't mean to kind of do a bait and switch that it's going to be less competitive there. Your money is going to go further there. And I actually have a house next week over there that I'm showing off market to a buyer. And I hope it's a good fit and I can sell it before it even comes on the market. So let's talk about how that works. That's really important in this price point. So I would say there's a lot of talk about off markets, and some of it is just BS, you guys. It's realtors trying to be like, oh, let me get you this thing. There's not a ton of off markets below 5 million. There are some, especially at certain times of year, like right now happens to be the winter time. And so it's not prime time for inventory, but I'm showing multiple things off market in November, December time. We're doing off markets again in the summertime because people don't want to have their homes on the market during those times, accumulating days on market when there's just not a lot of buyers around. But there are people who will sell homes in those times, and it's really good for them to, it's a win. They're like, well, I would sell it, but I just don't want to accumulate all these days on market. So with an off-market home, you really need to be working with somebody who does a lot of business, because a lot of the off markets, first of all, it's knowing the agents who are going to have the inventory. It's making sure that those agents actually want to talk to your agent and work with them, meaning that they know that that agent who you're working with is going to be really have really prepared you. It's not going to be a waste of their time, because to show an off market, a lot of times the seller's still living there. So they have to clean up their house, get out of their house, and you don't want to show it to somebody who's not that serious or doesn't really understand the market, doesn't understand how disclosures work, that sort of thing. So, really a lot of agents don't want to waste their time on off markets with the wrong people and the wrong audience. So they're not available to everyone. And it takes a lot of time to find them, because a lot of it is just this. It's calling. So, right now that's what we're doing, is calling and being like, hey, we've got this buyer and they're really serious. They're looking at these things. What do you have coming? Compass also has some really good technology where the agents who are ready to sell something off market, they're putting it out there to the Compass agents. But that's a little bit of a different level of an off market, not as hard to come by. And then there's some other things where there's tools that realtors have access to, like top agent networks and stuff. But it's work. It's a grind. It's looking through all these different places. So the key is to off market. It's working with somebody who does a lot of business, that has a really good reputation, that's going to be able to get you into those. So over $5 million, 25% of the homes are sold off market, you guys. So if you're over that price point and you're never seeing an off market, your agent is probably just not that plugged in. So you want to make sure that you're working with somebody who has access to that sort of thing. So I want to just show you one other thing. So I want to kind of wrap this up with a high level thought of how you can think about pricing. So let me show you the map. I think this will help dispel things for you. Okay, so this is my website. Somebody once told me that pricing was kind of like a wave that starts in the best neighborhood and moves out. And so when the market is hot, you get priced out of one neighborhood, and then that wave kind of moves over into another neighborhood. And then when the market goes down, it kind of subsides and goes back. So if we start at Pac Heights, this isn't totally true of all neighborhoods. This is why it's important to work with somebody who knows what they're doing. But like Pack Heights, if we were to go to Pack Heights, we could go down to Jordan Park. This is a great neighborhood. Happy to chat with you about that. But go down here. I think you would look at this when you're looking at Lake too. But go down here, a little bit less expensive. Lake and Inner Richmond, a little bit less expensive. Central Richmond, a little bit less expensive. And Outer Richmond, a little bit less expensive. And what I'm saying is that as you're going west, it's a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less. And you can see that, like, again, like if we started in Coal Valley, you can get a lot more for your money in Inner Sunset, and then a lot more for your money in Central Sunset than Inner Sunset, and a lot more for your money in Outer Sunset than Central Sunset. Does that make sense? I hope this is making sense. So it's like, as you go west, less expensive. Like, so we could do it again if we were to go, into Noe, which I kind of walked you through. Like, you could go, to Diamond Heights, a little bit less expensive. Mira Loma, a little bit less expensive. Skipping over West Portal is more expensive than Mira Loma. But then you go to Inner Parkside, a little bit less expensive than Mira Loma. Parkside, a little less expensive than Inner Parkside. And Outer Parkside, a little less expensive than that. So anyway, I hope this was helpful for you. The bottom line is that you want to partner with somebody that can help you think through some other neighborhoods. You want to have your net initially cast as far as possible so that you can understand like neighborhoods, but maybe your money can go a little bit further if you need that. Not everyone does. If you liked this video, you're gonna love this other one where we're gonna share our most affordable neighborhoods, where you're gonna see even more neighborhoods than I covered in this video. So make sure you check it out. My team and I have sold over $1 billion in real estate in San Francisco, and we'd love to help you too. Contact me in any of the ways down below, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.